I'll call to order the Monday, September 25th meeting of the Gladstone City Council and welcome all of you who are here with us tonight. Madam Clerk, all council members are present, so we have a quorum. If you would rise and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Hold. Madam Mayor, the colors are present. Both colors. Present arms. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Order. Arms. Please be seated. Want to thank our friends at VFW Post 10906, Carla Gleaton, Gordon Harris, and Jim Zimmerman for presenting the colors tonight. Item number 4 is the approval of the agenda. Is there anyone on council who wishes to make a change in our agenda? If not, it will stand as presented. Item number 5 is the approval of the September 11, 2023 closed City Council meeting minutes.
Mayor Moore?
Councilman Mallon.
I move to approve the minutes from the September 11th, 2023 closed City Council meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the September 11 closed City Council meeting. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Item number 6 is the approval of the September 11, 2023 regular City Council meeting minutes.
Mayor Moore?
Councilman Mallon.
Move to approve the minutes from the September 11th, 2023 regular City Council meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the regular City Council meeting of September 11, 2023. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Item number 7 is communications from the audience. This is a time during every council meeting when we invite members of the public to come before the council on matters that are not on our agenda this evening. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to present?
Larry Newport, 1008 Northeast 75th Street, Gladstone. I wanted to commend Mary Newman, our museum director, and many other volunteers Saturday for the gully washer we had over there helping spread straws so the vendors could get out and help the vendors put their tents down. Grandson, one of them, they were all just soaked. I mean, they totally soaked. And they'd done a nice job of doing that. She was out there running around trying to help people, and I just thought that ought to be recommended.
Thank you, Mr. Newport. We appreciate it. Anyone else in the audience? If not, we'll move to item number 8, which is communications from the City Council. We will start with Councilman Smith.
I have nothing this evening.
Thank you. Councilman Mallon.
Mayor, no comments this evening.
All right. Councilman Garnos.
All right, pressure's on.
Yes, it is.
I just wanted to mention last week, I know, Mayor, you'll probably bring it up, but the mayor and I had the privilege of attending a tour of the parks of Gladstone with our Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, so they could see the parks for themselves. Director Murky and his staff did a great job showing our advisory board, you know, each of the parks, what we have done at them, what projects are currently in the pipeline, and then also what some of our dreams for the future are for each of our different parks. So it was a terrific tour. We got to Happy Rock Park, and the kids were playing soccer, and the place was packed and colorful and children, and it was just excellent. It was a great tour and a really good opportunity for our advisory board members to see all of the parks for themselves. So that was terrific. Thank you, Director Murky. Also wanted to thank you for getting the brush cut back on that blind corner on Shoal Creek Trail. Rode it today, and it's much improved. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Spalla.
Thank you, Mayor. Just sort of to piggyback on Bill's comments regarding his tour with the advisory board, our boards and commissions call for action are coming up. We need volunteers to come out and help our city council and our city management in making important decisions for our city, and so I would recommend and appreciate anyone that may be interested in becoming a board or commission member to keep an eye out for the interview times and application process, and we would love to talk to you. Also had the opportunity to attend the NNI HOA President's meeting this past Wednesday night, and I had good conversation with several HOA presidents and people that also represented their neighborhoods. Also joining us, Alan Napoli and his staff, code enforcement officers, and Officer Burris. He was there and I just thought you did a wonderful job talking a lady down from having raccoons and coyotes in her backyard. So great job again. Thank you, Captain.
Thank you. Well, I will echo Councilman Garnas's comments on the visit to the parks. It was just a great tour. And I just want to voice my appreciation to Director Murky and the entire crew of the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Arts Department. You know, these individuals are responsible for the programming and maintaining of all the facilities that are truly hallmarks for our city. This is our parks, the community center, Linden Square, the AJ Farm. It just goes on. And our residents truly treasure these resources. Our parks and all of these facilities that we have are such great resources for our residents. They count on these, and it just takes an enormous effort 365 days a year to pull this off, and I just can't say thank you enough for all the wonderful efforts. I had a chance to speak at the Gladstone Area Chamber of Commerce luncheon last week. Councilman Garnas was there, so I was able to give an update to those attending about what's going on in the city, and that's always fun because we have lots of great things to brag about. And then I would just like to remind everybody that GladFest is this weekend, so please come out and take advantage of all the activities that are happening for GladFest. Mr. City Manager, I think it's your turn.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. You mentioned GladFest, but it's a busy time of year, so everybody put that on their calendar, as well as the weekend after is Whiskey Fest. It's happening on Saturday, October 7th at Linden Square. More than 20 local craft distillers will be in attendance, food trucks, live music by Outlaw Jim and the Whiskey Vendors, and Silver Bullet. So hope to see everybody there.
Thank you. We'll move to item number 10, which is the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, will you please explain and read the consent agenda?
A consent agenda allows the City Council to consider and approve routine items of business without discussion. Any member of the City Council, the city staff, or the public may request removal of any item from the consent agenda and request that it be considered under the regular agenda if discussion or debate of the item is desired. Items not removed from the consent agenda will stand approved upon motion by any council member, second unanimous vote to approve the consent agenda as published or modified. Consent agenda. Resolution R-23-61, a resolution authorizing change order number 3 in the amount of $40,000 to the professional services contract with Hafer Walker Architects for architectural design services for the interior renovation of City Hall. Resolution R-23-62, a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Enterprise Fleet Management for acquisition and disposal of vehicles. Consider financial report 2 months ending August 31st, 2023.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes an item to be removed from the consent agenda for discussion? Anyone on council? Staff?
No, Mayor.
Mayor Moore,
Councilman Smith?
move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent agenda is approved. Item number 11 is a public hearing on a site plan revision for property at 7200 North Broadway, Gladstone, Missouri. I will open the public hearing and explain that when we have a public hearing, here's what happens. First of all, we have the staff presentation. Then we have the applicant presentation. We will hear from those in favor, and then we will hear from those opposed, and then I will close the hearing after that conversation has happened. So we'll start with the staff. Mr. Greer, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. The applicant is requesting site plan approval for the purpose of constructing a new 5,000 square foot gas station and convenience store at 7200 North Broadway Avenue. This property is currently vacant and zoned CP2, which is an appropriate zoning for the proposed use. This project will incorporate a drive-through and a window, as well as two electric vehicle charging stations and a commercial bike rack. There will be 10 fuel pumps covered by a canopy to serve customers. The primary exterior building materials used will be brick and stucco. The landscaping plans show new landscape throughout the entire property using various trees and shrubs. All disturbed areas will be sodded and irrigated. Additional trees will be planted along the north property line to replace the removal of trees to accommodate stormwater infrastructure. The branding for this proposed gas station and convenience store will be called the Shortstop. City staff recommends that the following conditions be considered if the City Council chooses to approve this project request. Number 1, any and all disturbed areas shall be sodded. Number 2, all manicured grass and landscaped areas shall be irrigated and maintained in perpetuity. Number 3, install a minimum of 20 new shrub plantings adjacent to North Broadway Avenue. Number 4, install a minimum of 10 new shrub plantings adjacent to Northeast 72nd Street. Number 5, all mechanical equipment on the roof shall be screened from public view by a parapet or approved screening similar in design to the rest of the structure. This must be a minimum of 12 inches above the tallest piece of mechanical equipment. Number 6, a compliant monument sign shall be used to serve the development. The monument sign will need a minimum of 240 square feet of area landscaping around the sign. Number 7, all exterior lighting on the site shall be LED and designed to reduce adverse impact on adjoining properties. Number 8, the dumpster shall be enclosed with materials consistent with the primary building. Specific colors and materials shall be submitted and approved as part of the building permit. Number 9, trash service, store deliveries, and gasoline refilling underground commercial gasoline tanks shall occur between the hours of 7 o'clock a.m. to 10 o'clock p.m. Number 10, tractor trailers, storage containers, and other commercial vehicles, including delivery trucks, shall not be parked or stored overnight on the premises. Number 11, no more than 50% of each glazed window area of the building shall have signage. Number 12, hours of operation permitted are 24 hours, 7 days per week. Number 13, install a commercial-grade bike rack on site. Number 14, install new curb, gutter, and sidewalk along the property line adjacent to North Broadway Avenue. Number 15, keep and maintain a 55-foot buffer of wooded tree line from the north property line. Number 16, complete a post-construction maintenance agreement for stormwater facilities. And number 17, install a fire hydrant within 400 feet of any portion of the building. The developer has agreed to all conditions, and we do have the owner and the applicant in the audience tonight, and I would invite them to come up and say hello.
There will be a time for the audience later.
Good evening.
Good
Can
evening.
you guys hear me? My name is Jawad.
Muhammad Hafiz.
We're the owners of the property on 72nd and Broadway.
We've been in this business since '98. We moved from New York, and we already have a gas station in Kansas City, Missouri, Grandview, Missouri. We have one in Warrensburg, Missouri, 2 in Topeka, Gardner, Kansas, Kansas City, Kansas. So in Gladstone, it'll be our first opportunity, and all the detail, we have architect and Jerry, they will provide to you.
Anyone have questions for the owners?
I have a question for Austin. Austin, complete a post-construction maintenance agreement for stormwater facilities. I've not seen that before. What is that?
Sure, that's a new agreement that the state is kind of implying on local municipalities. In the very beginning, stormwater is managed very well, but through the project and ongoing afterwards, it gets neglected. So this is us trying to better that process, and you guys will actually see that condition more often.
Thank you. Thanks, Mohammed. I had that question.
I just have a quick question for you gentlemen. That's all right. The other stations that you own, are they all with the same brand name?
Two of them same brand. Brand, most of them they're Valero, but we named DBA name is a Shortstop.
Shortstop. Okay. Thank you. You have another question?
I do, and maybe it's for Jerry here.
Okay.
You're having to work with Kansas City, Missouri. Is that correct?
No, we're not actually doing anything with that. The only thing we're doing on Kansas City's property is adding a roadway. We're not doing any major development on there. We're just putting that out back road and adding some grading out to make the roadway work.
Okay. I will.
Could you just introduce yourself for the record, please?
Sure, I'm Gerald Menifee. I live at 6811 North Michigan, Gladstone, Missouri, and I am the project engineer for the project. And what we're planning on doing is a convenience and convenience store gas position problem. Let me start again. We're going to be building a gas stop service station with convenience store. We're we've got 10 fueling positions with steel canopy, a 5,000 square foot convenience store, a drive-through for carryout, which is the road that goes through Kansas City on the backside, and 2 new drive approaches, one on Broadway and one on 72nd Street, and 14 total parking spaces, 2 electric charging stations, which are on the north side there, the more farthest north 2 spots in the site, and 3 bicycle parking. We've got a biofiltration basin on the north side for water quality purposes of filtering the runoff from the site, filtering out the sediment and the oils that accumulate from the site, and they go through a layered system consisting of special fill, and it's allowed to percolate through there and then run off the resulting water that seeps through after like 48 to 72 hours, runs out through the wall to the north. And then we've got a detention basin, which is located underneath the northern end of the project in the parking area there, which also handles the additional water not handled by the water quality system. It's an underground system. It has a pipe that discharges on around to the north side through the wall, too. We're intent on maintaining existing wooding areas to whatever extent we could. Really couldn't do that too well because of the woods and the topography and all that. Working with this conspired to, and plus adding a water quality basin that conspired against us really doing anything with the woods. We're committed to doing LED exterior lighting, an 8-inch water main extension with new fire hydrant, new sidewalk along Broadway, and the store is going to be 24 hours open. This is the building elevations as it's been drawn up, and basically stucco and brick and rock. They'd be used on the exterior to give us some different textures, and primarily those larger panels are more stucco type panels. We're going to construct concrete blocks to the main building using metal bar joists, brick and stone veneer with concrete stucco on the side and rear. We have a high parapet for the screen, the mechanical units already, less than 50% glazing to have signage and matching enclosed trash dumpster. And this is our conception of what it ought to look like when it's completed. Another overview of how it might look. Landscaping plan. As you can tell, we're planting a lot of trees on the north side of the property. And that's primarily to make up for the trees line we're cutting into, which you can see that wavy line going across the detention basin. That is the southern edge of the trees as they exist out there now. Because we're having to cut in there so far, we're going to be replanting trees along the north side, which has no trees currently, up to the property line. And we're going to maintain all the trees that we can as far as possible, but we'll add new trees along the north edge. And we'll be planting new shrubs and trees along the right-of-way as required by the city. Oops. We will have a built-in irrigation system, which we intended to all along, planting trees and shrubs along Broadway at 72nd and all disturbed areas sown beside it. That's basically what we have for now. If you have any questions or anything you'd like to present.
Are there questions for Mr. Menifee? Mayor Pro Tem Sala.
Mr. Menifee, regarding the tree buffer, that's probably the thing that gives me the most heartburn here, because if you're going to take down mature trees, you're going to replant trees. How big of trees are you planting to give the neighbors the buffer that I think that they're probably looking for?
I would add to that also in terms of the type of trees, because it seems to me that it would be good if they were trees like evergreen trees, not trees that lost their leaves during that.
Well, certainly evergreens would be one consideration. Hardwoods probably mostly. What size or caliper we don't have at this time. We haven't gotten to the design process. We're mainly presenting this, trying to get approval as far as the ability to design this site. And we have no problems with dealing with some of the changes to whatever we want to do. And we had talked about, after the last meeting was mentioned, that we use possibly evergreen trees out there, which would be fine. We wouldn't have a problem with that.
Any form of a nice fence discussed, or
A what?
a nice fence or wall or any type to buffer between?
Well, we don't have plans for a fence now, but if we have to, we'll install one. But really, you're still going to be looking up into the trees, and you're still going to be looking at a high wall behind it, because we've got a fairly severe ground elevation to overcome there to put that pond in place. So you're going to see a lot of a modular unit wall up there. Now that can be fixed up with different colored stones and stuff like that, make it a little more rustic looking, but nonetheless you'll still see the wall, because we have to create certain elevations.
Mr. Menifee, can you talk about that retaining wall? Because maybe point out, where is that retaining wall?
Retaining wall, if you look, starting at the very, okay. Use start right here at this point. Work your way on up around. Start right here at this house.
So that's east to west on the property, all the way east to west?
Virtually. And it's necessary because we've got such a short elevation, we can fall down from the paved area itself. We only got 2% slope down, and that kind of curved looking drainage system that's down there at the end of the driveway. It curves around back. That is, it's only like 2%, which is 2 feet and 100 fall. And we couldn't go any steeper than that because it causes problems with settling out the necessary soil and sediment in the runoff. So we were stuck with that issue. So that kind of controlled where the elevation of the pond needed to be. We had, and so we got some hellaciously tall walls in the back there, by 6 to 10 feet in the front, and maybe closer to 20 feet in back. But That's just to overcome the elevations that are there.
And how large is that basin?
How large what?
Is the basin, the retaining the water basin?
If I recall, it was 44 by 84 was the basin itself, not counting the slopes around it. So that makes it about 6,000 square feet or so. No, 60,000. Not sure what it is. But that's about the overall dimensions. I couldn't tell you acreage. I just don't know.
Questions? Other questions for Mr. Menifee? Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, I do have a question. Let's talk about ingress and egress.
Okay.
You go.
What do you want to know about it?
Well, I just want to know on the 72nd Street side, obviously that's right there at the post office and right where people go down there and go in to drop their mail. So that, I guess, is there a decision made already about where that is? Is it directly across from where the post office one is? Is it slanted front back from that?
I'm not exactly sure where that is, but we could certainly adjust it within the confines of the property lines that are laid out. We can certainly adjust it toward the east or maybe slightly toward the west, but we still are constrained somewhat by the western property line being so close to the entrance.
I have some concerns about the traffic flow, and I just want to make sure that we do everything we can to try to alleviate any congestion that could occur there.
Well, it's going to be based upon how many vehicles use the exit or entrance there, certainly. And when a study hasn't been done, even though I have some preliminary figures of traffic, but I don't have anything on how it's assigned to the streets outside. Best I can tell you is that usually it's about new vehicles. These are not pass-by vehicles, which will be entering the site, but new vehicles run around 30 vehicles in the morning and the evening peak hours, which for 1 hour is about one new vehicle per every 2 minutes on average. And so those are vehicles will have to be figured out, which will increase the amount of traffic in the area. But the main vehicles will all be coming in from outside the area, but on a regular route that they pass through here normally. They'll be stopping to get gas on their way through.
So those numbers that you're quoting are currently what kind of traffic we're seeing in that area? Is that what you're saying?
No, these are numbers derived from the Institute of Traffic Engineers trip generation manual. An average trips to be expected for this type of project for the number of fuel pumps that are available.
Irrespective of the current traffic on Broadway and 72nd.
Yeah. Current traffic, there'll be some, in fact, let me get this out. Current traffic on the four roads that are nearest 4 links will be about, will be about 135 of pass-through vehicles and 32 new trips. Pass-through being ones that just stop on the way who normally use that trip, that travel section of roadway airways. So you have about 271 trips in and out together, both going in and going out, and divide that in half, you get 135.
Is this per hour? Per day? What is this per what?
This is for an hour.
For an hour.
It's generally taken in the periods of the morning from 7 to 9 a.m. in the morning is what they use, and 4 to 6 p.m. in the evening. I've normally used 6 to 8 p.m. myself, but this is what they have in the manual.
No further questions for Mr. Menifee. Okay, we will move to those in the audience who are in favor of this application. Seeing none, we will move on to those who are opposed. So I need you to come to the podium, give your name and address, and talk to us about your opposition.
Okay. I'm Raymond T. Marshall. My address is 401 Northwest 72nd Terrace. This is going to butt right in my property. Because I live right behind this, straight behind this. So that's where I live at. And I'm concerned how close is this place going to get to my property. I got to know that. I don't understand how close it's going to get. See, it don't make sense. Because if it's going to come around the line, the property line, how far it's going to be from my house. That's what I don't understand. I don't need it close to my house, okay? Okay, another thing. He don't actually know how bad the traffic is. I do, because I lived there 31 years, and I pick up trash all in that area. And I can see the traffic. I know, and there's a lot of traffic through there. I would know, because I sit outside all the time. So it's bad. And another thing, a truck cannot get in there. It's going to be a traffic jam for a trailer to that long. And there's no room for him to get in there and come out and go back on the street. It's going to be one bad mess as it is. But right now there's a lot of traffic. So he needs to tell me how close this is going to get to my property. I want him to know. I want to know.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall.
Thank you.
Are there others? Please come forward.
Hi, I'm Josie Nabavian, and I live at 400 Northwest 72nd Terrace, across from the Gladstone Bowl. And I don't understand why you're taking out the trees on the north side and then replanting trees. That you already have mature trees there, so why are you going to take them out and then add, well, whatever tree you're going to add? But how long is that going to take to grow and mature and to block out whatever sounds or prevent, any lighting issues coming through neighbors' yards and things like that? And the other question I have is, how are you going to put an entrance on Broadway to this facility? Because it's so close to the signal light. Are you going to do just like they did for the Gladstone Bowl? And, and people still, that makes no sense. Where are you going to put that entrance from Broadway into that facility for people to use? Because you're going to have to, you would have to cut down all the trees in order to make an entrance there. And then you're going to have to take out whatever, the electrical or the gas or whatever, because there's things along that Broadway that are going to have to be taken out temporarily and then put back. But at whose expense is that going to happen at? The taxpayers, or is the person that owns it, or who's going to pay for those costs? Because we're not the ones that want the gas station, and I just don't understand why you're going to take out the trees and put an entrance on Broadway. That makes no sense. I mean, that's what I have to say.
Thank you. Mr. Greer. Just so that we have some clarification on that, Mr. Greer is taking notes, so some of these questions that you're raising, we'll do our best to answer them, okay?
My name's Roger Tortorella. I went at 210 Northwest 73rd Street.
This is a residential area. Would you folks like to have this in your neighborhood? It's a residential area. There's Les's place there and the post office and Larry Whitten's place that used to be his. It's basically residential. There's apartments behind that. There's houses all the way around it. And there's no place for something like that. This is something Kansas City would do to their people, not Gladstone.
Thank you for coming.
No, I'm not done.
Continue.
It's ridiculous. There's Quick Trip is just down the street. There's gas stations all up and down and convenience stores all up and down North Oak. This is not needed, not necessary. These lights are going to be on 24 hours a day. The big lights. This is a residential neighborhood. Tina, Les, I voted for you two, and I expect you to protect us. Would you want this in your neighborhood? There's no reason for it.
Thank you for coming.
Where does one begin? My name's John Prender. I live at 406 Northwest 72nd Terrace. I am a Kansas City, Missouri resident, for your information, but I'm here on behalf not only of the Willow Creek subdivision, which is 74 homes, but for my Gladstone residents. I've been there 35 years, and this property has been a concern of the neighbors all the time. And here we are again. This was addressed before when Casey's wanted to build a gas station there, and now we're revisiting this. This is not the place for gasoline pumps in a convenience store. You got 12 pumps at Quick Trip. You got another 8 pumps at Zedzi in Gladstone. Another 4 pumps at Phillips at 73rd in North Oak. Why does this spot make sense for more gasoline pumps? There's not only traffic issues, environmental issues. I haven't heard anything from project engineer. What if these tanks start leaking? That I believe there is a storm drainage creek behind the residence, and if that gas starts leaking, where's it going? Line Creek? Missouri River? Who's responsible for that? And I tell you what, the prior consideration for Casey's, there was evidence produced that that ground is unstable, it's full of asphalt, chunks of concrete. So how much is going to have to be removed to make that suitable to bury gas tanks? And I tell you, an example today, little after noon, I was on North Broadway, south, making a left-hand turn on 72nd. I witnessed cars lined up coming out of the post office to make a right-hand turn. Only a few of them got through that traffic signal. The rest had to wait for another one. So now you've got this patrons coming out of this convenience store, gas station, trying to get onto there, as well as on the North Broadway. So I don't know what revenues you're expecting from this, but I hope you, if you prove it, you support public safety, not only for traffic accidents, emergency, there's going to be accidents up there like you wouldn't believe, and municipal court, because your docket's going to be full. So, high density lighting, I don't believe there's any way to screen that from overshadowing the Willow Creek subdivision. What more can I say? You're welcome.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition to this project? Greer?
Thank you, Mayor. I was taking notes, and I think there's about 3 primary concerns. For the gentleman back here, you asked what the distance would be from the edge of your property line to, I'm going to say the building. If you take a look at the property line here to the north to the basin here, it's approximately 55 feet. If you take that, and I mean, you can do a quick eye measurement here, 55 feet, 55 feet, 55 feet. So I'm going to say probably pretty safely 120, if not a little bit more, 120 feet from the actual building itself to the property line of this gentleman here. The second note that I took was, why are we tearing down current trees and then planting new trees? I think the answer to that is the developer needs this particular area to construct the stormwater infrastructure, which is closest to the project. Currently, right now, there are no trees planted here, and these are the new trees that they're discussing on planting. So it's simply just being north and south on the development, and they need the trees here to build their stormwater infrastructure. And while they take them down, they're going to plant new ones because they take them down.
Those are closer to the property line of the people that live there currently. Why are you taking those ones that are closest to their property line and planting trees?
Currently, the way it sits, that there's not any trees in this general area. They're more in this area. So those trees are the ones that would be removed, and then new, younger trees would be planted here. The third question that I wrote down was the entrance on Broadway and why we need that. Generally speaking, when you have developments like this, you want more than one access point. We actually had early discussions with the engineer and the developer, and the roadway that they had was actually right here, the access point, which we felt was too close to the stoplight. We didn't view that as being safe. So they were agreeable to move it down or move it north. That would actually be in line as the access point to Gladstone Bowl. So it's much farther away from the stoplight than what it was initially. So there's multiple access points to Gladstone Bowl. And this.
Let's let Mr. Greer speak, please.
The access point would be across the street from the lower level of the bowling alley, farthest away from the stoplight than initially proposed. The access point proposed in front of you is directly across the street from the access point to the lower level of the bowling alley. And then there were some discussions around lighting and the concerns there. Modern lighting allows for a certain degree of measurement, and the lighting study indicates that it'll be angled downward and likely isn't going to be a concern, being approximately 120 feet away from the southernmost part of the property line for the homeowner.
Austin, you addressed the distance from the building to the property line of the homeowner. What would be the distance from the north end of the biofiltration basin to the property line?
From where I have the laser pointed here
Yes.
to the northern property line, it's about 55 feet, which is included in the conditions to maintain as much of that buffer area as possible. In the plans themselves, they do indicate 55 feet exactly.
Austin, the detention basin, that's underground, correct?
I don't have the specifics on it, but it's a pond of some sort.
So it is a pond. So it's not completely underground. So it can be seen. The standing water can be seen. It will sit there. So it's not like a nice green field that would be aesthetically pleasing if you were to look out your back window of your house.
Yeah, so there's a significant grade there from the top of the property here to down here. I think it's going to depend on where you're at on Broadway, on what you see, just because of the grading. Does that make sense? it's not an easy answer or black and white.
Mayor,
Councilman Smith.
just a couple of things. I mean, the ingress egress point on Broadway, I think initially was designed to be across from the ingress to the upper lot of the bowling center. And I had suggested to Austin that that's treacherous. There's just not enough distance between, quite frankly, where ours is in the intersection. People come screaming north, but they also go screaming west and turn quite often against the red light, as a matter of fact. So they did move that back. So I think that's definitely an improvement on that side. I think there's some confusion as to tearing out trees on the north end, but yet it says dense trees to remain. Maybe you could draw a bit clearer picture of that. And then I think the other question was excavation of the property to bury gas pumps.
Do you mind if I pass it off to the actual engineer?
You go for it.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're a smart man.
What was the question?
Twofold. Maybe a clearer picture of the trees that are going to remain on the north side, okay, existing trees, and then the amount of excavation that will have to occur in order to bury the gas pumps.
To bury the gas pumps?
I'm sorry, tanks.
Tanks?
Come on, Jerry, you know I don't always speak clearly.
Khaled Bande.
He knows a little bit more on the gas pump.
I'm the engineer too, one of the engineers working on this project. I can explain on the My name is Khaled Bande. I'm with CAM Design, and I can explain on the drawing.
So the natural trees that are there now are going to stay. Your additional plantings are going to be between the trees and the homeowners? You're adding trees. So you're adding trees. Okay, gotcha. Okay, that makes more sense. The existing trees are going to stay. They're going to add additional trees between the existing tree line and the homeowner's property. There's actually a benefit there. Okay, thank you. I wasn't clear on that. Yes, excavation, just because all these people that live there, and they know what's underground, and they're right. What kind of excavation is going to have to occur in order to bury the gas tanks? I mean, I heard 20 feet at some point or something.
Well, I don't know. It'll have to be quite that deep, but it'll have to be, depending on the size of the tanks, or the top of the tank, at least have to be around 5 or 6 feet, I'm guessing, deep, and then however deep they need the tanks. But the tanks themselves are double walled, and they're already designed against leakage or anything like that. But I couldn't tell you how deep they're going to be till I get the design process a little better. But probably 5 or 6 feet deep. Before we start anything out there, we're going to have to do a geotechnical study on it anyways, because we can't be sure what's under there either. We looked at an old soils report, and it was showed a few boreholes, which didn't tell us a whole lot. But we really need to have some geotechnical work done if we get approved to move ahead.
I mean, that was going to be my next question. If you're having geotech done, because what you've got there is you have an awful lot of loose rock, concrete, loose fill underneath, and about the top 10 feet probably are compacted soil.
And there's ways of getting around some of that by drilling piers and putting down crushed rock columns or cement piers, for that matter, down and through the disturbed areas or the areas which are of poor soil, and can be used to support a structure that way. So it's not just the soil is all that bad, as long as it'll support the general parking area. A building or something like that might require deeper pier settings. I'm not sure, but
So, Mr. Menifee, just to clarify, those geo designs, that what you need to do to determine what the condition of that property is, have not been done at this time.
Well, you need to have some borings done out there in various parts of the track. And they'll drill down until you get to a point of refusal or to a certain depth they need to get to. Either one's acceptable. And they'll come up with a cross-section of the soils that are in those geotech reports. And they'll tell you exactly what each soil layer is, and they'll tell you its ability to support other soil layers above it and below it. And it generally gives you an overall view of what you have to deal with. It's like just like taking a cross-section of something.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Menifee, what you're saying is that we don't even know the feasibility of this property yet to build this building, if we haven't done, any core drilling on it yet to even see if it can support what they're wanting to do.
No, we don't know. It's an unknown right now.
The previous owner had done his experiments, and they had bored holes, sample holes, and for them it was okay to build a big building for the doctor's office, bigger than the ours, one which we are proposing, bigger than ours. The only concern you have about the tanks for the jerry transfer that we're going to check and compact the soil and the nutrients so that it is feasible.
And I can tell you also, when Casey's made their application, they did some borings, and it was suitable with some gravel and whatnot under the tank areas, but they had determined that it was feasible to build on. I think they're going to pier one corner of the building, maybe. But I mean, that was 30 years ago.
Any other questions for Mr. Menifee while he has risen to the podium again for us? Thank you. Mr. Greer, did you want to?
I do have one more thing to add. When it comes to the basin itself, it probably meets the standard, but we can work with Director Nevergall as well to potentially make that a bit smaller to preserve a little bit more wooded area if we can. So that it may be a little helpful, maybe not a ton, but maybe we can make it a little bit better.
Just one more clarification. Sure. That squiggly line on there that's through the basin right now, that between that and what the engineer was saying, those are trees right there now.
That's correct.
Those have to be removed for the basin to go there. But to the right of the basin, that's existing trees that would remain, and in addition, more trees to be planted on the north side of that.
That's absolutely correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? We've pretty much, I think we've heard from everyone. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. Okay. We will move to item number 12, which is the first reading of bill number 23-32, an ordinance approving a site plan revision for property at 7200 North Broadway, Gladstone, Missouri.
Mayor Moore.
Councilman Mallon.
I move to place bill number 2332 on its first reading.
Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to place bill number 23-32 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? All in favor of placing bill number 23-32 on its first reading, say aye.
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 All opposed? Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
First reading bill number 23-32, an ordinance approving a site plan revision for property at 7200 North Broadway, Gladstone, Missouri.
Mayor Moore.
Councilman Mallon.
I move to accept the first reading of bill number 23-32, waive the rule and place the bill on its second and final reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the first reading of Bill number 23-32, waive the bill, and place the bill on its second and final reading. Is there any discussion? All in favor of placing Bill number 23-32 on its second reading, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
Second reading, Bill number 23-32, an ordinance approving a site plan revision for property at 7200 North Broadway, Gladstone, Missouri.
Mayor Moore,
Councilman Mallon.
I move to accept the second and final reading of Bill number 23-32 and enact the bill as ordinance number 4.651.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the second reading of Bill number 23-32 and enact it as ordinance 4.651. Is there any discussion?
Go ahead, Mayor. Go ahead.
Councilman Garnos.
Thank you. I did just want to make one comment and I guess a question. With regard to the gas tank leakage and the double wall that they're now making the gas tanks in, we have unfortunately had to clean up a number of leaking gas tanks under former gas stations here. And it used to be a big problem. They have redesigned the gas tanks with double walls, so if one leaks into the other, it detects it. I cannot tell you that there will never ever be a gas tank leak again, but we have come to learn that the gas tank technology is significantly better than it used to be, and that we've had to spend a lot of money cleaning up after past efforts for. So I'm not telling you don't worry about it, but it's way better than it used to be, and we know because we've had to clean it up. The question I had was, I remember when we were looking at the family video property, and there was a lot of conversation about we don't need a DVD store here in Gladstone at that time. And as I recall, it was not appropriate for us to really consider the type of business that the private owners wanted to put in. That was not our job. Our job was to make sure that it complies with city ordinances, regulations, and particularly zoning requirements, and that if it met those, it was not our place to decide whether we wanted or needed another gas station at that location. That's the way I recall it. Is that generally correct?
Yes, Councilmember Garnos, that is correct. Under state law, you're not allowed to use zoning to regulate competition. This use is an allowed use in the C2 zone, so there's no basis to say that we have too many gas stations in terms of using that as a basis to deny it, if that makes sense. It's not an appropriate consideration.
When we denied that gas station application at the old Tommy's restaurant, as I recall, that did require a zoning change to do.
That's correct. It required a zoning change, and it was a site plan, and I think the other issue with that one was the proximity of the gas tanks was very close to the adjacent residences.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor.
Councilman Smith.
Yeah, and I think Bill, it's a good point, and this is only a site plan revision and not a rezoning as well. First of all, I can tell you that after the last time I spoke with Austin, I was prepared to support this project. I know that corner fairly well, and so I spent a lot of time the last 7 to 10 days, whether it be on our roof doing work or sitting in our parking lot watching, and I'm satisfied with, the trees that are going to remain. I'm satisfied with the lighting. I'm satisfied with all those things that are going to protect the residents, the neighbors. Okay, totally 100% satisfied. But the more I watched it, and that includes the ingress and egress on Broadway, I think that'd be fine. The more and more I watched it on 72nd Street with the post office traffic, it's not going to work. I can't imagine any way, shape, or form that it's going to work. I don't know if the applicant has any interest in tabling this so they can do some more work on that or research on that. But from my standpoint, now, and I think I commented earlier to someone that, okay, so what if it doesn't work? They're the one that's going to suffer because people are going to stop going there and they're not going to do business. Well, that's one side of it. The other side of it is the safety aspect of it for people who are not going there. And I just cannot support it after really seriously paying attention to what goes on at 72nd Street there. Can't do it.
Thank you. All right, other discussion. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Smith?
No.
Councilman Malum?
Aye.
Councilman Garno?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Spello?
No.
Mayor Moore?
No. The site plan revision has failed. We'll move to item number 13, which is a public hearing fixing the annual rate of levy for the 2023 real estate and personal property taxes within the corporate limits of the city of Gladstone, Missouri. Mr. Accurso.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council.
I will open the public hearing, and we will do as we did before. We will hear from the staff presentation. There's not really an applicant for this one. We will hear for people in favor, people opposed, and then we will close the hearing. Take it away.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. So tonight I am going to discuss the property tax levy for...
Could we have order, please? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So I'm going to discuss the property tax levy for 2023. This is always kind of a difficult discussion, especially in light of all the news that we've had recently. Fortunately, we haven't really had many issues here in Clay County and the city of Gladstone. Something I do want to remind everybody, the property tax levy does generate about a little over 20% of the general fund revenue. So this is something that goes to pay for police services, fire services, EMS, of course, finance and administration as well. So it does pay for several city services. So this right here is basically what was published in the newspaper. When I had to advertise this to get it to the newspaper on time, I did not have final numbers. So these are based off of preliminary numbers that we received from the county and several assumptions. So I tried to get this as close as possible, and fortunately it was relatively close. So this is what we saw in the paper. It was, however, based on assumptions. So these numbers were not finalized. We did receive the numbers probably the next day, but again, to get it into the paper in time, I had to get it done. So these are the numbers that were actually finalized recently. So just to kind of go over 2022 real quick. Total real property valuation, $397,572,557. Revenue to the city on that would be $2,966,949. That's real property. The city of Gladstone does use a multi-rate system, which means that our residential property, our agricultural property, and our commercial property have 3 different levy rates. So that's what you see here. The levy rate for residential, 0.751, agricultural, 0.476, and commercial, 0.729. Personal property, $91,511,309. Revenue to the city, $850,140. So for fiscal year 23, total real property did increase, $458,874,874. $458,870,274. So revenue to the city is $3,179,144. Something we've heard a lot of conversation about is what does the Hancock Amendment say? So the Hancock Amendment basically allows us to have revenue growth of 5% per year if increases allow for that. And yes, ours did. So usually what I do is I take a number usually around 3% because that's a pretty conservative number. And then whatever it comes out at the end of September is what it is. And again, these are the correct numbers. Personal property tax, $89,809,236. So that actually decreased a little bit, and it will have the same levy rate of 0.929. So overall, residential and commercial levies will decrease a little bit. but overall revenue to the city will increase by about 5%. Historically, so this is what's levied. Historically, we do collect about 95% of the levy in the current year. So between February and March, the city should receive about $3.8 million between real and personal property. So here's just kind of what we actually have. So last year, these numbers are unaudited. The city did receive $3.6 million in total property tax for the current year. This year, I budgeted $3.7 million, which I'm expecting, if you take about 95% of that number, is about 3.8. So thankfully, it's still on the conservative side. So I think that's good. So with that, I will answer any questions you may have.
Questions for Dominic? As I always say, I'm glad you're the numbers person. Truly
Thank you.
am. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor? Anyone to speak in opposition? If not, we'll close the public hearing. We'll move to item number 14, which is the first reading of Bill number 23-33, an ordinance enacted pursuant to Missouri Revised Statute Section 67.110, fixing the annual rate of levy for the 2023 real estate and personal property taxes within the corporate limits of the city of Gladstone, Missouri.
Mayor Moore.
Mayor Pro Tem Spallo.
I move to place bill number 23-33 on its first reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to place bill number 23-33 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of placing bill number 23-33 on its first reading, say aye.
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 All opposed? Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
First reading Bill number 23-33, an ordinance enacted pursuant to Missouri Revised Statutes, Section 67.110, fixing the annual rate of levy for the 2023 real estate and personal property taxes within the corporate limits of the city of Gladstone, Missouri.
Mayor Moore.
Mayor Pro Tem Spallo.
Move to accept the first reading of bill number 23-33, waive the rule, and place the bill on its second and final reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the first reading of bill number 23-33, waive the rule, and place the bill on its second and final reading. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of placing bill number 23-33 on its second reading, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
Second reading Bill number 23-33, an ordinance enacted pursuant to Missouri Revised Statutes, Section 67.110, fixing the annual rate of levy for the 2023 real estate and personal property taxes within the corporate limits of the city of Gladstone, Missouri.
Mayor Moore.
Mayor Pro Tem Spallo.
I move to accept the second and final reading of bill number 23-33 and enact it as ordinance number 4.652.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the second reading of bill number 23-33 and enact the bill as ordinance 4.652. Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Smith?
Aye.
Councilman Malum?
Aye.
Councilman Garnes?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Spallo?
Aye.
Mayor Moore.
Aye. Bill number 23-33 stands enacted as ordinance 4.652. Item number 15 is Resolution R-23-63, a resolution authorizing acceptance of a proposal from Brindley Mountain Fire Apparatus, Union Grove, Alabama, for the purchase of a 2017 Spartan Gladiator 100-foot platform truck for a total amount not to exceed $775,000. Do I have a motion?
Mayor Moore.
Councilman Mullen.
I move to approve resolution R-23-63.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept resolution -23-63. Is there any discussion?
Mayor Moore.
Mayor Pro Tem Spallo. Long night.
Yes, it is. I'd just like to say thank you to our leadership team and to Chief Destels. This is saving the city of Gladstone, the residents, hundreds of thousands of dollars by finding this particular fire engine that is being rehabilitated to practically brand new standards. If we did not do this, we would not be able to get this type of fire truck for years to come because of the shortage of vehicles that are available of this nature. And so I want to say thank you for your diligence in finding this and working through this process. And this obviously will keep our residents safer in the long run.
Chief Destells, do you have any more information you want to share so our residents have any more data? Mayor Pro Tem Spallow's done a good job with that.
Good evening, council members. Kind of to play off of that, a truck of this caliber, you're looking at in excess of 1.5 million. This truck has 20,000 miles on it, but we'll have brand new engine, transmission, drivetrain, wiring harness. They're doing a little bit of interior stuff to it. It'll be certified before we even touch it, so we don't have to mess with any of the certifications on it. It took a while, and we had to be on the ball with it. It literally, we had to say yes, we wanted to proceed. There was 4 departments lined up to take this truck. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens. But it is definitely going to be gone over with a fine-tooth comb prior to acceptance. So
we are grateful. Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments, questions for the chief while he's up here? All right. Thank you, Chief. All right. Ready for the vote. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
We had a motion and a second. Yes, okay, we'll do this again. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? Resolution R-23-63 is approved. Item number 16, other business. Is there other business to be brought before the council this evening? Seeing none, we are adjourned. You guys already